just want to start talk about the preparation for the season, and we'll go to questions.
Cool. Yeah, it's been great. We're just knocking on the door. This season's right around the corner again, and really excited to get going. Preparation obviously been different this year. This is the worst winter we've had in the last 10 years. When I first moved here, it would have been 2025 December, and Coach Mays convinced me to come to Morgantown and said the weather's not too bad. And then that first week I was here, that's when we got 22 inches about 10 years ago, and I was in a little apartment down by the river, and I remember getting snowed in. But we really hadn't had anything like that in the last decade or so. It's been great, and most times we can get outside 2, 3, 4 times per week leading up to the season. This has been very unusual, where we've had to be creative. We've been outside, we've been pushing the limits in 25, 26 degree weather outside, but you got to be smart with how you train and how you go about it to make sure your players are healthy. But we've been really blessed in the last 2 weeks. We went down to Charlotte 2 weeks ago, and we played a scrimmage on Friday just because we had to get outside to be able to base run and see live balls off the bat and compete. And then we just returned late last night around 11 o'clock or midnight from Columbia, South Carolina. So it was kind of a interesting place to go. It was literally the furthest place within driving distance that we could go and basically make it after scrimmaging Friday morning. So we scrimmaged Friday morning, we got on the bus around 2 or 2:30, and then drove the 8 or 9 hours to Columbia, South Carolina, where we had a field that somebody allowed us to use. And so we played 2 long scrimmages on Saturday and Sunday. And that was the first time that Max Yell had pitched outside. That was one of the first times that Dawson Montesa, who's going to be a starter for us, got to pitch outside. And so you just learn a lot being able to actually play baseball. There's only so much that you can train in a batting cage. And so we got a ton of work. It was kind of like old school baseball camp. It was natural grass and dirt field. And so our guys were tamping and raking and covering and tarping and a whole bunch of things that they don't have to do every day here, because we have turf field and also have about 35 selfless student managers that really help with the program. So we were taking buses and kind of in baseball camp during the weekend. So we just returned from that trip, and now we have a few days to prepare before we get on the plane to head to Georgia Southern.
How much of these past couple weeks scrimmages and whatever are going into who may get the most looks early? And if you can go through a little bit with that from a pitching perspective and also from a lineup defensive perspective.
Yeah, I think the fall really tells you a lot of who you're comfortable with, and it probably goes from maybe 18 position players to you think maybe there's 14 that are really competing for more of the time, and that probably dwindles down to more 12 that you think may be instant impact with some roles starting to develop. And then by the end of this weekend, you probably say there's 10 to 12 guys that are competing for everyday starting jobs. There's some guys that need the benefit of the doubt when it comes to failure early in the season, and then there's some other players that probably need to platoon more. On the pitching side, really I think pitching is probably most decided closer to the season. Once you get back from Christmas break, it's so important for how the guys train over Christmas break. So who takes care of their arm care and their throwing and their routines, because you truly have to build up while you're away from campus. So the players that are great at those processes and come back bigger, faster, stronger, with more command, more velocity, more stuff, and consistency, they have a chance to pitch earlier on. So very similar to the position player side, just in the sense that when we came back here, we basically set up 3 games versus each other, like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday series. And even if we were playing indoors, you had 2 guys kind of competing on Friday, 2 guys competing on Saturday, and 2 on Sunday for those starting pitching jobs, essentially. And then as the weeks have gone, we've started to narrow who we think we'll start with. But early in the season, pitch counts are usually at about 75 tops. We've built up to that. No one's thrown that much yet. They're at 60 to 70 pitches this last weekend. And so ends up needing to be a lot of piggyback starts, meaning that someone could start and go 3 or 4 innings, and then you bring in somebody that's already been built up in a similar role. And so early in the season, you're putting guys in those starting roles, but it doesn't mean that week 3, week 4, week 5 might look a lot different. It's just, who did you build up to be able to get the largest workload on these weekends coming up?
Steve, you talked about Montesa. What did you see through his recruiting? Does he kind of fit the description of those successful Division II players that you kind of
No doubt about it. He's a superstar. So he was at Adelphi, which is obviously not a powerhouse program that a lot of people have heard about, but he had a lot of success. His walk to strikeout numbers are insane, and really, when you're recruiting transfer portal starting pitching, pitchers that are able to throw 80 to 100 innings, whether it's NAI, Division II, Division III, Division I, that just means that you're able to stay healthy, compete, and not implode on the mound. And I don't care if you're facing little leaguers or you're facing big leaguers. It doesn't really matter. So there's not that many guys in the country that can actually do that, show up every week and throw 7 innings. So that's a great starting point from a recruiting standpoint. His school is small and there's not a ton of resources there, so they don't have TrackMan, they don't have video. We didn't even have real velocity. So we knew some scouts and we knew some agents in that area who had gone to Adelphi, and they're playing in February like we are, but they saw the kid throwing 95 in basically a snowstorm. And so it was like the legend of Dawson Montesa. Like, it wasn't documented, there was no real video. And so we recruited him once he got in the transfer portal and were really serious about him, but we still didn't really know. So he went to summer baseball in the New England Collegiate League, and they have some of those resources in that tech. And so the very first outing, when we were able to get our hands on, this guy actually is throwing 92 to 95 with some power stuff and good spin, we already knew that, like, he was in the zone, he was competing, he was healthy. He had been, we scheduled a visit basically like a day later. He came on campus, awesome kid from New York City. His dad's a master plumber in New York City. He was beautiful. He was like, these stars are crazy. In Morgantown, like, he had truly never seen stars before. And I think he told me that there was a Church's Chicken that was next to his apartment complex in New York City that's open 24 hours a day. So they have like blackout curtains and all sorts of stuff. And so this was like a whole different world to him, but him and his family kind of fell in love with some open air and mountains and a beautiful landscape and obviously a great baseball program. So I think he's just one of those simple kids that's really thankful to be here and stupidly talented. He's got an elite arm, probably more stuff than the other successful Division II pitchers that have been here that have gone on to play pro baseball. He actually has more God-given electricity in his arm.
Steve, how about the other 2 Division II guys you brought up?
Is there only 2? Who are we talking about? Korn and Chance and Cole? Yeah, Ian Korn's been fantastic. He was the National Division II Pitcher of the Year last year, and he's been great. Strike thrower, competitive. He's going to provide a ton of value to our team. And Chance and Cole's probably been the biggest surprise. So he's the youngest Division II pitcher out of that crew, and he's from Newberry College in South Carolina. And when we were playing Clemson in the regional, we were recruiting him pretty actively. And so he came and bought a ticket and watched us play Clemson. So sweeping that regional sure helps on the recruiting front when the Mountaineer fans are going crazy and you're winning ball games. And then before we flew out on the jet after winning the regional, I had breakfast with him and his family at a breakfast restaurant. Got to meet his folks. Awesome family, awesome kid. He's about as mature and confident as a sophomore player that I've ever had. And so sometimes when a player's coming from a lower level, I feel like they kind of put their toe in the water and figure out, like, hey, am I meant to be here? Can I do this? He's just come in with like such conviction and clarity that he's capable. He's really been a pleasant surprise. He'll actually be our Friday night starter to open up the series against Georgia Southern, and he's a pitchability righty that has been very consistent for us.
Ian obviously had great numbers down there winning National Pitcher of the Year. But
Yeah.
how does that transfer up, do you think, for him?
I think it absolutely plays. All 3 of those guys kind of fit that mold that we talked about. It's 80 to 110 innings of health, consistency, clear-headed, and winning. So that's what they all had in common. So you have these winners that showed up every 7th day and gave their best effort, and their coaches basically let them go until they could go no more. And so that's rare, but at the lower levels, it happens more often where guys get to 100 pitches or 120 pitches just because you don't have this back-end bullpen of stuff and velocity and usually an eagerness to get more players involved at our level. At the Division II level, the drop-off between a Dawson, a Cole, or an Ian is probably very significant, and so they let those guys pitch through situations too. In the second inning, it's bases loaded and you give up a couple runs. It's not like we got to get to the bullpen. It's like, Corn, you're going back out. So they just get to mature, where at our level, oftentimes there's like pressure to put somebody else in the game or to try something else. That's why I think those kids develop at a very fast rate, sometimes at the lower levels.
You talked about building a program. Last year, you guys were in the preseason poll fourth. Now this year, you're third. You guys keep growing. How important is that to the program?
The rankings mean nothing and are of zero importance to the program, but the fact that the peers of the college coaches in this league respecting the program certainly means something. And I think most of us don't really know what the other schools are going to be like. We recruit some of the players, but the unique part about WVU is that we're a little bit on an island. It's maybe a hair different now that Cincinnati's in the league, but I don't think Oklahoma State, Arizona State, BYU, Houston, or UCF has any idea who the hell Dawson Montesa is, or Ian Korn, or Matt Einish, or some of the portal players that we brought in. Maybe you ran into them or evaluated them on the transfer portal side, but it's really more about a respect for a program and a culture that's being built, where you start to just respect the people in the league and say, year in and year out, they put a quality product on the field, they recruit the right kind of kids, their staff's elite, those kind of things. And so that's certainly flattering to be considered a top program preseason by the coaches.
Where do you have four games? Go ahead.
Chase Meyer, where does he fit into the pitching plan? Start of the year at least.
He's incredible. He was our wins leader last year. He's of the highest talent in the country. He actually broke his finger when he came back from Thanksgiving break. So he had a finger break and now is building up. But he's probably, I hate to say, use the word behind, but just from a scheduling standpoint and a build-up standpoint, he's probably 3 or 4 weeks behind the rest of the pitching staff. But he's in a great spot. He was up to 97 miles an hour 2 days ago in Columbia, South Carolina. So his velocity's there. He's healthy. He's pitching. He's just right now, I think he got up to a max of 30 pitches. And so he'll be coming out of the bullpen early this season just because he's probably at a 2-inning, maybe 3-inning max, depending on how efficient he is early on here. But he's capable of anything he wants to do. If he competes well and throws strikes, he can be a starter, he can be a closer, he can be a middle reliever. He's one of the most talented kids in college baseball.
In a normal 4-game week, Kelly catches 3. Line 1, or?
I think Gravline has turned into such an elite catcher and so consistent offensively throughout the fall that we're going to have to see how that plays out. If it ends up being a 50-50 split, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Or if Gravline ended up catching a little bit more, it wouldn't be shocking just because of Kelly's versatility. So Gravline has gotten so good behind the dish. It's us, selfishly as a coach, you always say, like, well, Kelly could turn some double plays over there at second, or he could field every bunt at third base. He's just so good with the glove. You always start saying, well, like, if there's anybody struggling in any other position, you're like, well, Kelly could probably step in and handle it pretty good. So we'll have to see how the games go early on, but we are very, very convicted in our catching core that it's extremely talented. So Gravline, Kelly, and Creed Erdos has done a great job. He's a transfer from JMU that had knee surgery, and he's just really, really worked himself into a position to find his way into ball games as a younger guy. So he provides a lot of protection from the catching side of things.
And then does Guzman stay hurt?
Guzman trained at second base this fall and center field, and so he will likely open up in center field for us. He played He played third base for us and played right field for us. Him and Paul Schoenfeld have been excellent in the outfield. They're both true center fielders, and they'll probably both get their shot in center field, but going to start with Guzman in center field.
Steve, is Chase's rubber finger on the pitching gear? Like,
It is.
it's already.
Yes.
And in regards to the Division II kids, do you consider the success that Kern and Clark had when you're weighing at all, or is it completely separate?
As far as
Knowing that they can get it done at this level, and you've seen.
yeah, I wish I could translate that. I don't think them being in the game has anything to do with the other players' success. I do think in recruiting, when you're evaluating, you're obviously very open to the concept that a Division II player can be successful here because we've seen it first and foremost, but it's probably just gives us a big leg up in recruiting. So nobody else can really tell this story, right? The two most successful pitchers in our program over the last 2 years are probably unequivocally Griffin Kern and Derek Clark from a total innings standpoint and success standpoint. So when you're recruiting these kids, they like to see the proof of, okay, I hear you think I could be a starter at West Virginia. Has anyone ever done it that's like me? And we can say, yeah, like nobody else in the country. And so I think that's when you look up, and we didn't go just attack Division II kids. We recruit everybody, and there's a lot of great players. We just happen to probably get the 3 best Division II pitchers in the country to come to WVU, and that's truly a story, I would say. And we'll see, in 15 games or 20 games, please tell me if you guys see more success out of Division II pitchers somewhere else. I'm interested in that from like a recruiting standpoint. I just don't think that will be the case. I think we will probably have the best Division II transfers in the country here. Yale, it's been tremendous. Super proud of Max Yale. He's probably one of the bigger sleepers in the country because last year he was recovering from Tommy John, and so his sophomore year he really showed some glimpses of dominance, and then going into his junior year before Tommy John, he was throwing the ball really well, so well that scouts were really excited about him. So he turned down significant draft money this summer to come back to West Virginia. So Yale could have signed a professional contract higher than many of the guys that actually signed. He just believes that it was in his best interest to come here and build this track record of success at this level, because if he does do that, he'll be one of the higher end draft picks and make significant dollars in the draft. And so he's been great. He's a leader. He's matured. He's ready to roll. Right now, our plan is to start him on Saturday against Georgia Southern. And so he's going from a limited relief role to a Saturday starter. So that kind of just shows you like how much I believe in him and how much he's grown to be there. He hasn't pitched a ton and is coming off injury, so we'll see how long the start can be or what he can do. But he's healthy. He's a horse. He's 6'6", left-handed pitcher. He's been up to 96 this spring. So the stuff is real, and then he's going to have to settle into this starting role and see kind of what it takes to win.
Last season we saw Hagan get those midweek starts. Is there a young guy out of that freshman pitching core that we might see get one of those midweek starts?
Yeah, early on this fall there was 2 kids that really separated himself from a starting standpoint with the freshmen, and that's JT Huther. He's a young guy from Florida, and then Wyatt Mosley is a left-handed pitcher from Michigan. They've both proven to throw strikes and be able to compete at a high level, like both those guys. And then maybe the most impactful early freshman that you may see is a kid named Dave Perez. He's from Philly, and he's come in and just been so consistent. He has the best stuff out of any of the freshmen. It's 91 to 94 with a power slider. He throws a changeup on command, really controls the game. He came here as a two-way player, and he probably thought he was more of a third baseman as a pitcher, but the arm is so good, and he was great. Like right away, coach, if you think that's what I need to do, that's that's what I'll do. And he was raw. He didn't have any idea what he was doing on the mound. And within a semester, he's turned himself into a pretty special pitcher. And so there's bumps and bruises with any freshman that gets out there. But if you saw him right now, you'd be like, that's a seasoned veteran portal player. Like, he looks like he's ready to go. He's a little fire hydrant right-handed pitcher with good stuff.
When naming players coming in from the transfer portal, you brought up Matt Einich. What does he bring? Is someone who hit the ball at that high of a level as a freshman in the MAC? What does he bring to the lineup this year?
You guys are going to be fired up to watch Matt Einich. He's really special. So he's going to be our starting shortstop. So Brody Kresser last year played shortstop for us kind of all the way through with a torn labrum. I don't know if you guys remember that. So he had surgery on his arm, and it's healthy and it's coming back. But those surgeries are no jokes. You get anchors in your shoulder, and it takes a long time to come back. So Kresser's been playing second for us and first base for us, but the arm's not ready to, step on it in the 6-hole and throw it across the diamond. And so Einich is going to be our shortstop, but he is an animal. Him and Gavin Kelly, from the sophomore class perspective position player side, I think that's an extremely dynamic crew right there. That's going to be really fun to watch. Very likely that Kelly and Einich will both be in the 1, 2, or 3 hole fairly consistently for the Mountaineers this season. And Einich has just been great defensively, solid at shortstop. He's kind of that quiet killer kind of mentality. He's able to turn the page and move on to the next play as fast as just about anybody I've ever coached.
How has Kelly's development been this offseason? Coming off a pretty good freshman campaign.
It's been great. The kid is just really confident now and kind of knows what to expect out of this thing. He's definitely the lifeblood of the team from like an energy standpoint. He's exciting, he's confident, he's fun to be around. He can steal bases, play short, play second, catch, hit. He's really developed there, and he's very comfortable in his own skin now. We were laughing the other day because early season we were playing Queens last year, and Kelly didn't start for us every game just because it's hard to do that on great teams as a freshman. And Kelly, he was about as good as a freshman can be, I would say. And just like any freshman that's a superstar early in their career, when you don't play, it's the first time in your career that you don't play. And we were joking with him because Coach Garcia was talking him off the ledge at Queens a year ago or so because he wasn't playing, and you could see the body language, and he was upset. And so now he's going to be in a position to be able to talk to some of these young guys that are learning what it's like to be on a good team, and that there are roles, and that you develop, and that you step into bigger moments. Because Kelly down the stretch was as important as anybody for our team, but it doesn't always straight line. You start game 1 and you start game 56, and then right. That's not how this thing works. And so, but Kelly's matured. He's really good.
You mentioned Kresser at first base, losing Hussey like that, and then you also have Lumsden who can play anywhere. Is Lumsden also in that conversation for first base as well?
Absolutely. Yep. And this fall, first base was probably just because Hussey played there so much, and we'd always been like, well, Hussey will play first, right? It's kind of that was taken for granted. So first base was the biggest whole learning experience, tryouts, whatever you want to call it, this fall. And so Ryan Maggie played first base. Ben Lumsden played first base. Freshman Zahir Barjam played first base. I put Schoenfield, Brock Wills, Brody Kresser, Tyrus Hall, Matt Roball at first base. Everybody at some point put on the big mitt over there to see if they could pick a ball. Kresser's just a great option because of graveline catches. Kelly started at second base a lot for us last year, so that would be very easy. And for Kresser, we put him over for the first time over there about 3 weeks ago, and within a couple at-bats, he picked a ball at first base. Third baseman threw a ball, and he picked it, and he's like, why is everyone saying this is so hard over there? This glove's huge. So he had fun with it, and Kresser's the ultimate team guy. Like, there's no ego, There's nothing but winning in that kid. And so you could put him anywhere on the field, and he's just having fun with it. And then Lumsden has played a bunch of first base this week. He had his best offensive performance of the spring while we were in South Carolina. He hit 2 home runs in 3 at-bats when we first got down there, so that was pretty loud. And he's developed and getting better, so we're excited about that. But I'm very confident in putting Lumsden at first base as well.
Barjan was one of the players you mentioned coming off injury. His progression and anybody else you're concerned about or would be concerned about?
Yeah, Barjan missed the fall. He had surgery on his lower half, but he's back. He's really special bat. So he's a freshman that can flat out hit. One of the best right-handed hitters that we've brought in that's ready to compete. If you just threw him in every game, he would probably hit for you. He needs work defensively, base running, and when you miss an entire fall, you just don't get the reps that everybody else gets. And so he's working to put himself in a good spot. But from an offensive standpoint, special freshman, we've put him behind the plate a little bit. We're kind of training long term. We think he might be able to catch. He came in as a middle infielder, and we ended up training him primarily at first base just because we didn't have a right-handed option over there really until we put Kresser over there with Maggie and Lumsden primarily playing first base. It was nice to have a right-handed option in Barjan, but he'll get in there too. He's an exciting young player.
Coach, in terms of your outfield, how do you kind of plan to go about all that with all the senior talent you have, a couple fifth-year guys? How do you sort of plan to get all those guys some reps? Yeah,
there's a few options. It's primarily left-handed with Guzman in the outfield. So you have Guzman, you have Paul Schoenfeld, who's a transfer from Colorado Mesa. He's another Division II player that is incredible. He's a fifth-year guy with high baseball IQ. I've fallen in love with how that kid plays the game and how he approaches every day. Brock Wills is a senior from UNCW who's tooled out, really good player. You have Ben Lumsden, who's a returning player that's had success in spurts here. All those kids are left-handed. And then we usually train people at multiple positions, more than most schools. So Matthew Graveline, who has been in the middle of our order since the beginning of the fall, he's just had a lot of success. He catches and also plays left field. He played left field for Ohio State, and he's a right-handed hitter. And then Sean Smith is the transfer from Georgia Southern, actually, who's a senior as well. So he's a right-handed hitting option who's had a lot of success throughout his career offensively. So essentially 4 left-handed veteran bats, 2 right-handed veteran bats, and then you sprinkle in some younger guys that have been developing really nicely. And Maxwell Melessa, he's a returning player. He's a sophomore left-handed hitter. Sean Goldie's a freshman. But we have options, certainly have options, and so that's where it's always interesting for when Kelly's catching, where does that put everybody else? Who's hitting, and if you want to match up lefty versus righty.
Seems like you and Randy and this program in general really prided yourself on versatility with players, being able to move guys all over the place. But I mean, hearing you talk now, it seems like this might be as versatile of a group as you all have had maybe in a while. Is that fair?
Totally fair, and the staff really understands it because it starts with what we did here for a long time, and Randy was never afraid to throw somebody at a new position. And it's hard in the fall when you know, positional coaches are working with somebody because there's only so much information that each player can intake, and when you're learning about bunt defenses and plays and cuts and relays and all these things that are position specific, sometimes practice can stay sloppier longer than you would like because people are all over the place. But every year when you get to the season, you're always one injury away from potentially, it'd be really nice if that guy that could rake, that's the senior, could go to first base. Well, we think we've addressed most of those things because Lumsden's versatility and Kresser's versatility and Gavin Kelly's versatility and Graveline's versatility. And it really starts with recruiting athletes, because if you have a bunch of big body stiffs that have to play the corners, this conversation becomes a lot more difficult. So I am proud of that fact, and sometimes that can bite you in the ass too, because if a player's not prepared to put him in a position and you've dreamt it up, but we think we've put the work in to make sure kids are confident in those spots.
You guys also.
Full off season with the new facility. Have you guys done anything different training wise, or kind of just any more specific on certain areas with it?
Ton different. So I think this is a new age of Mountaineer player development. That's just the truth. I mean, we have a full-time biomechanist with a PhD on staff. So with that comes new things and new language and new coaching and new techniques and understanding how the body works. We've never had covered cages during the winter. And so you can hit at night. You can hit before you go to the IPF. Guys can come from class and train. You can throw bullpens on technology every day until your heart does as much as your heart desires, right? And so there's just like a lot of new things. So we've had to manage that in good ways and in bad ways. And but the bottom line is that we're just in a better spot from a player development standpoint because we can be creative. If it's 25 degrees and sunny out, we may be able to hit inside and train off high-tech pitching machines, then dynamic, and basically play defense until your fingers are right on the verge of being frozen, but not quite, and then come back inside and train, right? So there's just like it gives you some options, which is really nice. And so I'm very excited about how we were able to train. And we don't get into the IPF if we want until usually about 6:30 or 7 p.m. at night. And so there's some balance that of guys just sleep schedules and recovery schedules, and like if you run every night from 7 to 11 p.m. you might wear dudes out. And so this building has allowed us to kind of be creative when it comes to practice scheduling.
You guys have announced new uniforms. You're going to kind of honor the old field and stuff like that. How important is that to, kind of go back and see kind of where this program was built on and how far it's come?
Really important. I feel like I'm a broken record because I talk about that all the time, and every time I do, I'm always like, I got to quit talking about Holly Field. But that's what I knew. Like when I showed up, when I was at Oklahoma State, when we came and played here, and it was the chain link fence, and it was the natural grass, and it was the porta potties. I tell that story all the time, but that was my motivation, like seeing that to where it is now, and then where we want to go from here, right? So I do think it's extremely valuable for the players, the staff, to know what has been built here, and the fans, because there's a certain excitement that comes with growth. And so I think that's what we're always into, and we're always pushing. And then the amount of feedback that we've got from former players and staff members, just excited that somebody and a program would honor the past, because I felt like before there may have not been enough recognition for what this program had done with the resources that it had. So I think it's just like a sense of pride of 125 years of guys playing hardball for WVU. And so I think it's just like a connection of the past and the present, which is pretty cool.
Putting together your defensive lineup, what's the most important? Infield clean play, outfield coverage? You've got to have one thing. What is it?
Yeah, It's a great question. It's always like a sliding scale on all that stuff. I've never pigeonholed myself to say we're a base stealing team, we're a defensive first team, we're a bunt team. I really like to be versatile and use the personnel accordingly. It's really interesting when you slide Kresser over to first base. If you had Kelly, Kresser, Einish, and Hall potentially starting in the infield, all four of those players were high school, junior college, or Division I shortstops. So you just become a pretty athletic infield. And we usually have had some boppers on the corner, whether it's Hussey or it's Chumley, or a few of those kind of guys. And so we have a chance to have a very athletic infield. Guzman's one of the fastest players in the country. Schoenfeld's a great defender. Lumsden's proven to be great. Wills has speed. So I do think we'll have a solid defensive group. I'm probably a sucker. I guess now that I think about it, you want to pinpoint me. It's the middle of the field. So it's catcher, short, second, and center field. So you obviously want high quality players that can handle the ball at a high level there, but the consistency there, I've always been a big sucker for, and that was part of the reason we put Sam White at second, because he was just going to be in the lineup every day. Non-traditional, thick-bodied second baseman that just moved okay, but he was really sure with the glove. He was a leader, and he'd be there every day, and so we just left him there. When you start interchanging shortstops a ton, that's probably our biggest challenge for me as a coach this year, because you have two catchers that need to catch. You have, when one of them catches, the other catcher's so damn good, he probably has to play middle infield, and Gavin Kelly. Guzman has played infield, but he's our center fielder. So I'm like, are we going to play merry-go-round with the middle of the diamond? And I think the reality is that we probably have to with the personnel that we have. So we'll see how that evolves a little bit, but that's probably something that we just haven't done a ton of. It's normally like the catcher catches 85 to 90% of the games. The middle infield's the same. The center fielder, Skylar King, jogs out there every day. So I just think this team, because of its versatility that we preach and that we love, will probably force us to do some of those changes.
Steve, going back to where you've been, you ever think about like still where you want to go when you look at the stadium and kind of put this here, or maybe add this bell and whistle program? I'm sure you have a list, right?
Yeah, we got all sorts of things, and at the banquet that we just held, President Benson and Rin Baker were giving me a hard time, bussing me, because they wake up to texts about things that we can do and how we can make this program better. A big piece of this in the last 5 years have been the changing landscape with NIL, revenue share, scholarships. So we had no chance to be where we're at unless we started moving forward in those areas pretty aggressively, and that's certainly what we did with the Board of Governors approving 28 scholarships for our program and putting us in the top 25% of the league. Then revenue share and third-party NIL has a big part of this, and so it was always this arms race for facilities, and then it became an arms race with the roster resources. And so we've gotten in a position where we're competitive in this league at a minimum from a roster standpoint. So it'll probably swing back a little bit to the facility side, but I think the most obvious one right now is the fact that we've sold out season tickets for 2 consecutive years, and people want to come to the games that potentially can't get into the games, and so that's a bad business model long term. And so I think there's some concepts being thrown out there about the berms, being able to set those up for more fans, whether that's large amounts of seating or luxury seatings, or those concepts they talk about with return on investment. But I think that's something I would really like to see. We got that scoreboard taken care of last year, which was awesome. I think the chair backs need work. They're old and broken and not that comfortable. And then one other project was that large fence down the third base side where fans essentially can't see through it. It's kind of like it's kind of like a prison bars. Probably shouldn't type that in there, but it's probably not fair. But you can't see through it. So on the first base side, you have the drink rails, which is awesome. Everybody gets a beer and watches the ball game. If we could do that, that'd be a pretty easy solution for more viewing for fans on that side. And then the other piece is just this infrastructure and this total build out of this biomechanics and performance center. That thing is a monster of its own. So I think there's over $1 million in technology in there. You hire a biomechanist, you have a partnership with the School of Sports Science, you bring in a private company that's called BioPrecision that's operating out of there. And so just the infrastructure and the manpower required to run that facility at a high level requires a lot of attention and resources. So we need to keep pouring into that if we want to separate ourselves.
Back to Chase. Can you reveal what finger he broke? And you said that his velocity is good, but with just different pressures on the ball, how is his secondary pitches like?
Yeah, I wish I was less ignorant in this. I believe it was his index finger. It might have been his middle finger. It was a really small break, but obviously on a pitching hand, that matters tremendously. And so we felt good about it. I forget what type of break they call it, but if it was a football player that caught a pass, he wouldn't be out of the game. He would keep playing, essentially like a bad jam is what they said. But with a pitcher, it's just a whole different story. And so after 3 weeks, they thought he was good. He started throwing a ball after 3 weeks, and I think he's 7 or 8 weeks since then. Early on, pressure of the curveball bothered him a little bit because of how the ball sit and how much pressure it put on that finger. But now he's throwing his whole arsenal, and the velocity's up again. And so we're past the break. There's no break. They've done X-rays and they've looked into all that. Now it's just building up the pitches and the shoulder and making sure that he's in a good spot from a feel perspective.
Going good? Steve, that'd be beneficial. Not a good thing, but like kind of open up a starting spot, a couple more innings maybe. Can't give you 6.
Yeah, you never know. You never know like how it'll turn out necessarily, but maybe it gives someone else an opportunity to start and get off to a great start and build confidence. And so I think with anything early in the season, as long as you're avoiding season-ending injuries, it's not always a bad thing. I think that's a very good point.